Okay, so welcome to the 17th video in the Discrete Structures series, and we're going to start this video with a look into the applications of number theory, and that will involve linear congruences. So these are equations of this nature. What can I multiply with 3? That leaves a remainder of 4 when divided by 7. And we'll look into the process of solving this kind of equations, and that will involve the extended Euclidean algorithm. So if you are not familiar with that, I recommend that you watch that first, because we'll need to find the modular multiplicative inverse of a number, and that follows from the extended Euclidean algorithm. And then the next thing to discuss from here would be the system of linear congruences, and that is the process of taking two or more of these kind of equations and finding the solutions to all of them simultaneously. And the process to do that will involve the Chinese remainder theorem. Okay, but my plan is to dedicate one full video to the Chinese remainder theorem because it deserves it. Therefore, we'll be looking into this one in the next video. And for the purpose of time management, in this video, I will discuss one another application of number theory, and we'll look at cryptology, and especially the Caesar cipher. So this is not directly mentioned in our course, but there is always a possibility that the question could ask the applications of number theory in general. And it would be worth mentioning, cryptology is one of the applications, and this also uses modular arithmetic. So we'll be looking into these two topics in this video. Alright, so let's get started with it. So what are linear congruences? Let me note the title down here. So any congruence in the form AX is congruent to B under mod M is said to be a linear congruence, because you could see that the nature of this equation is linear. And essentially this is asking, what can I multiply A with so that it would leave a remainder of B when I divide that number with M? So let me bring back the previous example to make it clear. So 3x is congruent to 4 under mod 7. And before we start to look into how to solve this formally and what a solution would even look like, we can already start making some guesses. For example, if I plug x as a 1, my statement becomes 3 is congruent to 4 mod 7, which is not true. Correct? Because 3 divided by 7 does not leave a remainder of 4. It leaves a remainder of 3 instead. And then I could try a 2. And is 6 congruent to 4 mod 7? So you'll see that it is not. And then the lowest number that you find that satisfies this equation is actually a 6. Okay, so when you multiply 3 times 6, you get an 18, and divide it by 7. 7 times 2 is 14, and that leaves a remainder of 4, which I want here. So how do I get to this solution 6 without making a guess? And more importantly, is 6 the only number that satisfies this? So it turns out that it is not. Okay, if I take 13, 13 times 3 is 39, and that still leaves a remainder of 4 when divided by 7. So in fact, there are a family of solutions, and we'll next look into the process that can find all of the solutions. Okay, so let me pan my board a little bit to the right here, and I'll put my equation here. 3x is congruent to 4 under mod 7, and we know of at least 6 and 13 as solutions. Okay, so the first step to do is to find the modulo multiplicative inverse of A under mod M. Okay, and finding the modulo multiplicative inverse is the same as asking what can I multiply with x in order to reach a 1, okay, and not a b. So in the general question, it will ask me ax congruent to b, but I want to start off with ax congruent to 1. And so that would be the same as solving ax is congruent to 1 mod m. Okay, and the solution to this comes from the Euclidean algorithm that we saw earlier. So it will be extremely clear when we look at the numeric example shortly. So let us put a little faith in the process, and for now we'll just move on assuming that there is some magic number m that is the modulo multiplicative inverse of a. Okay, and somehow multiplying this number with a makes it congruent to 1 modulo m. I just want to show you what happens if this is possible. Okay, and we'll see how the extended Euclidean algorithm can be used to find the value of m. But for now, let's carry on. So assuming I could find a number like m, the next thing that I want to do is to multiply this equation by m. Okay, so I'm going to have m times a times x is congruent to m times b under mod m. And then if you look at this term, m times a times x. But since the m that I found was the modular multiplicative inverse of a, ma is congruent to 1 mod m. Because when I found x as m, that would make it congruent to 1 mod m. So I can use that fact here, and ma would be congruent to 1. And this would just leave me with x congruent to mb under mod m. So all I want to do, if I look into this example, is to remove this 3. And I can remove this 3 by finding the modulo multiplicative inverse of 3 mod 7. And when I find that number, I'll multiply this equation with that number, and the left side will only be x. Okay. And how do I actually find the modulo multiplicative inverse? Well, I use the extended Euclidean algorithm. So let me demonstrate a full solution of this problem so everything is crystal clear for you guys. Okay, so my first job is to solve 3x congruent to 1 mod 7. So what can I multiply 3 with so that it leaves a remainder of 1 when divided by 7? The lowest number that does this is going to be 5. Okay, 3 times 5 is 15, divided by 7, 7 times 2 is 14, leaves a remainder of 1. So this checks out. But what is the advantage of even doing this, right? I transform this question to a similar question like this. I only change the 4 to a 1. What does that change? The extended Euclidean algorithm will only give me the modulo multiplicative inverse. So in other words, it will only give me the number that leaves me a congruence of 1 when divided by 7. But thankfully, I can make use of this number to transpose this equation into a solution. Okay, so that is why I have to solve this first. Alright, so next we'll see how we can calculate this 5 from the extended Euclidean algorithm. So I want to apply the extended Euclidean algorithm on 3 and 7. Okay, so it's like the process of computing the GCD of 3 and 7. But the side effect of that process is going to be that I'm going to be able to calculate modular multiplicative inverse of 3. So let us start with 7 and 3. And by the way, if you are not familiar with the process of the Euclidean algorithm or the extended Euclidean algorithm, I recommend that you go back to the last video because those steps will be used here. So as you know, I begin with 7 equals 3 times 2 plus 1. And then I take 3 and 1. 3 equals 3 times 1. Okay, and this step got me no remainder and therefore the GCD is 1. But I am not interested about the GCD. I am interested in expressing this GCD as a linear combination of 7 and 3. So I can do that by writing 1 equals 7 minus 3 times 2. Okay, so just transposing this to the other side. And see here I have expressed my 1 GCD as the linear combination of 7 and 3. But obviously this doesn't always happen in one step. So if the Euclidean path took multiple steps, it would also take you multiple substitutions in order to get to this expression. But your goal is to be able to express these numbers as linear combinations of 3 and 7. And you can see here I've done that, right? So I could also show that by writing 1 equals, so my coefficients, Bejout's coefficients are 7 into 1 plus 3 times minus 2. Okay, and whatever is multiplied with 3 is my modulo multiplicative inverse. So my modulo multiplicative inverse is minus 2. And the modulo multiplicative inverse of 7 is 1. Okay, that's how I know. Okay, so going through the process again, start by considering this as a 1. You want to solve the congruence with 1 first. And solving the congruence for 1 involves applying the extended Euclidean algorithm on this coefficient 3 and the modulus factor 7. 3 and 7 are easy examples, but it could take you multiple steps to reach to your GCD. Once you have your GCD, you apply the extended Euclidean algorithm in order to be able to express the GCD as the linear combination of 3 and 7. And in the final expression, the multiple of 3 is the inverse of 3 and the multiple of 7 is the inverse of 7. Okay, but I promised my answer would be 5, but I have a minus 2 here. So there's one more thing to do. Let me pan my board here. Okay, so by looking at these Bejout's coefficients, so let's verbalize this from the extended Euclidean algorithm. The modulo multiplicative inverse of 3 is congruent to minus 2 mod 7. Okay, and in order to bring this minus 2 within the modulus, I want to say 5 mod 7. And why is that? I can add any multiple of 7, right? So I just added 7 and got 5. Because as you already know, this is the core of modular arithmetic. I'm always allowed to add as many multiples of my cycle as I want. Okay, so now I have arrived at my number 5. So the next thing that I want to do is to multiply this 5 to my original equation, this one. So what happens when I do that? 15 times x would be congruent to 4 times 5 is 20 mod 7. And we know that 15 mod 7 is 1. Therefore, only x would remain here. And x is congruent to 20 mod 7. And 20 is bigger than 7. I always want this value to be within my modulus and positive if I can. So therefore, I'll write one more step and say it is congruent to 6 mod 7. Again, 7 times 2, 14 and leaves a remainder of 6. And before going on to the next one, there is one little observation. When I calculated this inverse of 3, I am not forced to go to a 5. Okay, using minus 2 also works. Because it is not just 5 but the entire congruence class of 3 that is actually the modulo multiplicative inverse. So it would also be true to say multiply with minus 2 instead of 5 and then you would get minus 6x congruent to minus 8 mod 7. And the logic is the same. This should also be congruent to 1 mod 7. And then how can you get this minus 8 within the range of 7? So let me add 14, 7 times 2 and that would give me plus 6. Okay, so it's the same thing as saying 6 mod 7. I only chose to do this because it's generally considered good to consider this value between 0 and the modulus. In your exams, maybe this is shorter. Okay, now let's explore what this solution means a little bit. So I'll put my solution here. My solution is all x that is congruent to 6 under mod 7, right? And this proves that I have not one solution but a family of solutions. So 6 is one number, and we saw earlier that 13 was another number that satisfied it, okay? And this 13 comes from the fact that I can add any number of 7s into this 6. Therefore, 13 plus 7 is equals to 20 would also be a solution, and I could go in the negative direction as well. So 6 minus 7 minus 1 would also be a solution. So essentially, I could multiply 3 with all of these numbers to get a remainder of 4 when divided by 7. And I cannot stress the importance of the extended Euclidean algorithm in this process. So if you did not understand anything here, that's probably going to be this step that involved the extended Euclidean algorithm to find these linear combinations and the modulo multiplicative inverse. So go back to the last video if that is the case. The extended Euclidean algorithm is discussed in extreme detail, and all of this will follow really easily. Okay, so the next is going to be about solving multiple linear congruences like this simultaneously. So finding the values that solve all of them. But like I said earlier, I want to dedicate a full video to that topic of Chinese remainder theorems. Therefore, I want to spend the rest of the time that I have here talking about cryptology. So this is a really simple topic, and we only want to learn this as a side application of number theory. And cryptology is essentially the study of secret messages. So the idea is I want to be able to send a message that I as a sender can understand, and no one in middle would be able to understand that message, and only the receiver would be able to understand. Okay, and what goes into this process is called encryption. So whatever the sender has first is the plain text message, and then the first step that happens is an encryption. And once this encryption happens, the message is not decipherable. Okay, the message cannot be read in the middle, and when the receiver receives the message, they go about decrypting the message. And obviously, in order to be able to decrypt, the sender and the receiver will share some common secret. And this has a lot of applications on data security. So we had a hint in one of our earlier videos as well. So there's the RSA algorithm, the public key encryption algorithm, and that is used to generate digital signatures. Because see, the idea of the signature is I should be able to sign it, nobody should be able to replicate it, but everybody should be able to verify it. So someone should be able to verify my signature without being able to sign themselves. So that form of encryption uses two keys called the private key and the public key. I think the private key is called SK for secret key, and public key is called PK for public key. And then the way such an encryption works is that the secret key would be used to encrypt the messages, and the secret key is only known to the sender, okay? But everybody else in the world would verify that it is the message coming from the sender based on their public key. And the public key can only be used to verify the signature. It cannot be used to generate a signature or to replicate a signature. And this is just one application. There are loads of applications inside of cryptology. And for our purpose, we are just introducing cryptology as an application of number theory and modular arithmetic. Therefore, we won't need to go into these details yet. So let's look into something relevant inside of cryptology, and that's going to be the Caesar cipher. And this is one of the most simple and primitive type of cryptographic algorithms. And I mean to say that it is not used in real life at all, but it definitely has some advantages in the sense that we get to learn about encryption and decryption functions. So a Caesar cipher is nothing but a letter shifter. So for example, if my word is hello, and I want to apply a Caesar cipher with, let's say, k equals to 2, all that means is that shift each letter 2 positions to the right. And we all know how to do that. So H would be converted into a J and so on. So really simple. And in order to decrypt, you just have to go back. The only thing that we are going to care about is going to be about writing the encryption and decryption functions. And there's a little thing that we need to make sure to do right here. So let's say my encryption function would take any letter position in the English alphabet. Let's say that is M. And since I want to shift it k times, right? So the result would be the letter at the M plus kth position. But what happens to my letter is a Y, and I want to go 2 spots ahead. So I should cycle back from G to A. So in order to represent that, I want to consider the whole thing mod 26. And obviously this uses the indexes 0 to 25. Okay, so A would be 0 and Z would be 25. Because that's the nature of modular arithmetic. It leaves a remainder starting from 0 to that number minus 1. And what is the decryption function going to look like? So I take my letter position, I subtract k places. And in this case, the risk is not going over 25, right? Because I'm not adding, but I'm subtracting. The risk here is going below 0. So let's say if I have a M is equals to 0, and that is representing an A. And when decrypting, I realized that the value of k was 2. And then I want to go 2 spots before A. That means I want to go back to Z and then a y. But when I'm taking m minus k, I'm getting 0 minus 2, right? And that's minus 2. So what can I do with this minus 2? I can add a 26. And that would result to 24, which is indeed the value for y. So let me add a 26 here. But then I should not have added 26 if the number was not negative. Because in the same example, if I were going back from D to B, then I did not fall below 0. So I did not need to add the 26. So what can I do to make sure this works in all cases? I can simply take this value mod 26 again. So when I do this, if the value is below 0, this 26 corrects it. And if the value is already above 0, this mod 26 will remove the 26 anyway, right? And I'll just pay m minus k. So this is a simple Caesar encryption function and a decryption function here. Okay, so let me end this video here. We'll start next video by continuing our discussion of linear congruences from earlier. And so the next video is going to be all about the Chinese remainder theorem. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and bye.